We may not have our lives together, but we do have microphones, Wi-Fi, and an alarming amount of useless knowledge. It's just
There you
two
go.
dads coming together, chatting, and having a good morning, starting the week off right. It's the Dom and Gabe Show.
Good Monday morning. That's right. Welcome, friends. Let's get into it.
I'll tell you what, no matter how you feel, hearing that intro music, it just brightens it lifts the whole room up.
It's like with that first sip of coffee. Every time I hear it, the first one that's like really good, and the second one is trying to recap that.
Yeah.
How was your weekend?
It was good. Well, I officially turned 30.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it's funny, the stereotypical like 30-year-old decline. I kid you not, the day after, my neck and my back are killing me. Now I have I have reasons why, but it is like shocking how quick everything went and changed. I was playing with the kids and rolling around like a goofball like I have always done. But then I rolled around once, I got up, I'm like, ugh, and it was just stiff as a board. And now I can go this far.
Oh, no.
So I have to kind of work on that.
Okay. I rebel at this sort of reality that you hit your 30s, you hit 37, everything, you're as functional as a 60-year-old, and
I know.
and I'm like, most men hit their prime.
That's
I think our prime is about 30s, 40s.
Yeah.
That's prime. I'm like, Maximus Decimus Meridius didn't wake up with a bad back.
No.
So what are we doing wrong? If
that's the real question. What am I doing wrong? And I know what I'm doing wrong. So it's just the trope of 30 was funny, but I had a good weekend. Got a lot of fun gifts. My wife gave me a bunch of books. She basically went through my Amazon wish list cart and just
those are the best.
Yeah. So I had fun ones that we've talked about. King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, stuff that I just never got. So I got a bunch of fun books. I'm going to go back into the Inheritance Games trilogy. So I put a pause on the one I'm currently reading because it's just so good. I just want to kind of zip through that. So I got the rest of those.
Nice.
I had a surprise. My brother came up from Florida, which was fun.
Wow.
I was doing the chickens, and my dad was in the driveway, and he was like, "Hey, my car's making a funny noise. Can you come on and check it out?" I'm like, "What are you doing, Dad?" I was like, "No, it's not, and it's running." So I was like, "Whatever." He must just be, I don't know. He might. I thought he had a surprise, but whatever. And then I pulled around in the passenger seat, crouched down with my little brother. So that was a fun surprise. Came up from Florida for the week. So yeah, it was a fun weekend. My wife put a lot of good, fun little surprises together, made it fun. It was really good. Yeah.
Favorite birthday cake or what did
how'd
that go?
I like ice cream cake. It's my favorite go-to, like Carvel ice cream cake. But she's like, "How about I make something?" So she made ice cream cake, which was very good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have your own ice cream maker?
No, she kind of bought the ice cream, but then made the cake, and so it's vanilla, cake bottom, ice cream filling, cake top, and the frosting.
Nice.
So she made everything else besides the ice cream.
Yeah, she must have had to move fast if you're putting cake and icing together like that.
Well, I don't know how. Yeah, I'm assuming. I know she made the cake like a couple days before, or a day before, let it cooled, and then did all the ice cream. But I do not know how she did it. But it came out really great.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, hooray!
It was fun. Yeah.
Cool. What else besides
those
two books? Anything else going?
Yeah. Well, I got some fun things. I got a fun remote control car that goes like 50 miles per hour.
Dang. Okay. Sometimes those things go so fast at startup they get airborne. And they flip around.
Yeah. So you have to kind of like dial it, like slowly build up.
Okay.
But that was fun. The kids. I was like, that trumped the day. We just went outside and ripped that for a bit. Yeah, I got like a wood carving, to carve a bird, a wood carving set.
Wow.
Yeah, just fun. Wow. She just went all in and got a bunch of fun things. It's funny. We're talking about love languages. That's my wife's biggest love language, like giving gifts.
Gift giving? Oh,
very much so.
My wife as well.
So she's good at it.
That's where this conversation goes. Because
there we go. Gifts
suck. At least I think I do. I can't seem to match up, and I dread festival days like that.
And it's terrible because she sets the bar. My birthday's in February, hers in March. So the start of the year, I'm like, great. but we know that this was like a special thing, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's funny.
It stinks. Like I have good ideas for gifts, but I don't know why they never come out and they never like fulfill. I am not good at giving gifts. I shouldn't say that. Sometimes I am.
Mhm.
For the large majority, I don't get jazzed to do it. She just loves doing it, but it's not something I like doing.
Mhm.
I'd much rather give of my time, do some of service, like make a breakfast. I guess
Yeah.
of some sort, but
I wonder if this is like a universally sort of guy
I don't
thing. I
know.
don't know
Yeah.
of any guys that have really dialed it in. And I'm thinking back,
Yeah.
like, and bro, if you're out there and you did nail it, I'm sorry. All
Yeah.
praise to you.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
I'm thinking back, like I'm thinking like ancient Viking chieftains and how they were, and really across the ancient world. I think leaders were great gift givers. They're the
Mhm.
great ring givers.
Mm.
They modeled that specific gift of being able to give not only generously but to give intentionally to to each other. And so that's kind of an interesting thing to chew on. It's like maybe that's why we lionize that as a virtue among our leaders, because we need to see it being done
Mm.
among us as guys or something. Because I don't know. That's just interesting stuff. So you carve wood? I didn't know that you were interested into carving
I
wood.
I started I started with pipe making. So
I
my
didn't know
let's
that.
see, 5. Well, it's not frequent, but I did it 5, 6 years
Try to
ago.
quit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Carving pipes. Like, oops, sorry, another weekend.
too
Darn it.
much, too much. No, like 5, 6 years ago, I think my mother-in-law got me a kit for carving pipes. You get a block of wood and like the rasps and everything and all the set. And I made. Let me see if I still have it. Yeah, it's right here. I made my first pipe then.
You
And it's,
made that?
yeah, so it
That
comes
is
with
so
it
cool.
comes with
I
the
see. Okay.
stem, and then the block is just like a cube with the pre. And I got it pre-drilled holes because if you don't drill them right, you can whatever. So it's pre-drilled,
Okay.
but yeah, you get it's such a fun experience to carve it out, smooth it out, make it what you want.
Mhm.
And then I made 3 other ones for my brothers and my dad. I just love it. It's so fun because it's you don't have to be artistic to
Mhm.
do it, if that makes sense. 'Cause I don't consider myself artistic. You could be
Yeah.
creative, and it's
Mhm.
just impatient. So as long as you're creative in the sense of you want to make something and patient, I feel like it's a
Mhm.
very good thing to get into, and it's fun making it nice and smooth. So tried that, but I've always wanted to do like little figurine carving. I think it's just so like cool, soothing, and fun to make things.
Mhm.
So we'll see how it comes out. But and you can see this
I
ship
was
right
gonna
here.
ask, did you do that?
So that's the start of something. Yeah, I started that
Okay.
probably 8 years ago, and I made a joke. I said, I just want this thing to be like take forever, and the kids be like, Dad, when are you gonna finish the ship? And lo and behold, that's what it's turned out to be. The backside is not covered at all.
The Legend of the Unfinished Ship. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and we had talked about this, like starting serial starter. That's what we were talking
There
about
we go.
before.
That's what we want to talk about today.
Yeah, and so you can see like my office
Mhm.
is just a museum of started projects.
Mhm.
But yeah, so I'm really excited to just do that. I like using my hands in woodworking and
That's so
little
funny.
projects.
I remember being my dad took myself and 2 of my other brothers to Brazil when we were kids. I must have been like 11 or maybe 12. No, it must have been like 10 or 11. We were young. And uh, I think I remember on we were driving across Brazil to Rio de Janeiro. And it was like, took 1 or 2 days to do it or something like that. And I remember sitting in that car thinking, what would my dream life be in the future? I would like to be a bit like Heidi's grandpa, if anybody remembers that story. But he's a grandpa, he's a curmudgeon high up in the Alps, sort of raises goats, eats cheese and toasted bread,
Great.
basically. And I thought, oh, that just sounds great.
That's the
And
life.
I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to carve little animals, and
Mm,
that's what I'm going to get. Nice soft wood, and I'm going to carve these cute little,
yeah.
basically they're Disney like squirrels, and then I'm going to sell those, and that's how. I'm going to walk down the mountain, get myself a bucket of water every day, and this is going to be the life.
Yep.
So, yeah, that never happened, but who knows? We're still
Hey.
young.
Yeah.
Um,
You have to be an old. Yeah, you're many years until you're an old curmudgeon. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's only
the
Monday.
old part, not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I used to smoke pipes like every
Yeah.
day, twice a day.
Wow.
as oh gosh, 10 years ago, right up until I got married, basically. But sitting down to work was always smoking. Like my dad and I used to work elbow to elbow down in the basement, and then we would both smoke up a storm. So the drop ceiling would be about like 2 feet lower. Yeah. But it smelled good, and
Yeah.
it was probably so bad for us. But it was like cherry Cavendish is what we got. These
Yep.
big bags of that.
Oh
I
yeah.
remember going to college, and I would sit outside to read because the sunlight was nice. And then somebody walking around the other side of the building would, oh, there's Dominic, because you can smell that cherry
Oh yeah.
Cavendish, and
Very.
nobody else smoked a pipe. And
Mm-hmm.
I loved that. It was, Chestertonian
Oh
LARPing.
yes. Yep.
I would love to get back to that someday.
Yeah, it's
I
been a
love
while.
pipes.
I have
It's a whole
not.
culture.
It is, and I haven't done it in a long time. But I do like. I would like to make them again. I think that was very, and just to put some personality in each one. Like made. I tried to
Some
make them.
details on them or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
So this one from Canada. I'll show you what. So see how it's like, indents
Wow.
and carved. So this one's a
Oh,
really.
you're
I bought
kidding.
this one. I've
Okay.
said so I make this one, but I tried to recreate that, and I did that for my brother, and I did all the swirls with the Dremel, and I
Mhm.
got his initials on the side through like the kind of like the design, which is so it's just fun to like
Nice.
experiment and do different shapes and different styles, and there's different woods, and it's
Mhm.
very I like getting into that. So
Oh,
next thing is
that
the
is
bird.
cool. Yeah,
But
the
yeah,
bird.
but
Good.
yeah. So it was fun. It was a fun weekend.
Awesome. Yeah, on this end, major thing that we did was we tackled something that we've been avoiding for like a year, which is driving out to our storage unit and
Oh.
loading everything up in a
Oh
U-Haul.
wow.
Because
Yeah.
so we needed to basically one get rid of the expense, that monthly
Yeah.
expense. We had to get rid of that now. So new year, new us, but also a lot of the stuff that was in there doesn't fit in our new place. We don't need it anymore,
Yeah.
and it's kind of a just letting things go kind
Yeah.
of thing. So yeah, loading all of that up, loading all of the the stuff, and then drove a ton of it down to the Goodwill, and then it was sad, and it was exhausting, but sad and weird to
Hmm.
see everything go. One of the reasons that we couldn't sort of bring it into to our new house is because we have an oversensitivity to mold because of our previous home,
Yep.
and so we just don't know how much of it got into the
Carried
furniture or the
over.
clothes, or
Oh.
if at all.
Yeah.
Even though we washed everything with like mold detergents, and we
You
wiped
just don't
everything
know.
down, and we got cleaner stuff, so we know that we're oversensitive to this stuff. Other people may not be, so we just figured just let it all go. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Bring it in here and us, reviving our
True.
own symptoms because we're too, I don't know, sensitive.
Yeah.
So anyhow, we just basically rebooted our life this weekend. It felt got all of everything except a few little keepsakes put in a little 5x5 storage unit just down the road. But chairs and desks and all the board games and all the clothes and boxes of shoes and all mine, obviously, and just everything that sort
Yeah.
of had gone into making up our life. And it's rough for us because I don't know if we've actually talked on this show, but when we got married, I left my entire life behind. I brought nothing into the marriage because we were just walking away from a family that did not want to accept
Yeah.
the marriage. And so we just completely cut off ties. And now I didn't really have anything anyway because I was from a family of 8 kids and
Yeah.
basically worked from home. And so I
Yep.
hadn't really like built up anything. But so when we got married, we were just going to fly down to Australia and we were going to get right into a brand new home. Some people were putting a flat together for us, an apartment. They were donating fridges and furniture and so on. And we were really looking forward to that. This was going to be a completely new life on the other side of the world. And then we just I couldn't leave the country. My
Oh.
paperwork disappeared. So
Jeez.
then we were completely stuck because then I had completely nothing. And then her family, were her stepdad had been kind of counting down the days until she could leave. And she didn't come with anything. She thought I was going to provide everything.
Yeah.
And I thought I was going to be able to as well. And then we ended up in an attic at her grandparents in Tennessee on a cow farm with absolutely nothing to do and nowhere to go and nobody to sort of get help from. And then she got sick, like very, very, very badly sick. And it took us like 10 years to kind of well, like save up and get to this point, and then we've moved every 2 years, and so everything is always in boxes, and then uh, stuff is sitting at grandma's in boxes, or it's in storage units. And
Yeah.
I was realizing as I was packing up our last house, so a year ago before moving here, realizing so much of my life is the color beige, the beige of moving boxes.
Yeah.
It's not a
That's
comforting thing.
interesting.
It's just a
Yeah.
weird feeling every time I look at these, because when we moved from Australia to the United States, lived in France for a year. We thought we were going to be living in Europe. And so all of our stuff, our whole life, was in these massive, big beige cardboard boxes that were sitting up in an attic in this school, in the disused wing of the school. And so, because with our stuff, we would go up and hunt through it and dig through it and trash those boxes, looking for cool things from our
Yeah.
previous life in Australia. And this sense of like really being lived in and moved in and putting down roots and so on, it's something I really want, but
Yeah.
we haven't had yet. So anyhow, we've been here for a year. You could say it's minimalist living, but it's like we just don't have very
Yeah.
much,
Yeah.
And so
Yep.
to let go all this last stuff and be throwing all the pictures of our memories, and
Mm-hmm.
because we don't want to bring things into the new home that we don't actually need, or we're not confident of and stuff. Letting everything go was weird, but
Yeah.
at the same time, it also feels like a bit of an anchor. Just let
Mm.
go, and I don't know. I'm sure there'll be more memories or thoughts, or
Yeah.
philosophical reflections that'll come from it.
I was gonna say
But
that brings up so many different interesting points of like the philosophy of like what is home, the philosophy of things, and we've talked about this in my me and my wife of just having things because we moved relatively about a year ago, same time,
mhm,
and putting everything in together, and you look at all the things you accumulate, and some things bring you joy, some things are memories, some things are just things, and you think about if we were just talking about this recently because we were thinking about the California fires and
mhm,
people who lose everything, and like we've fortunately never had to experience that, but even in your case, kind of letting go of everything. And what I'm getting at is just that it's interesting to think of what makes a life. And
mhm,
there's so many different elements. There's a family, there's faith, but there's also the things you have, which is
mhm,
so interesting because they're not animated, but they are a part of
mhm,
daily life. I'm
mhm,
looking at these pipes. Like I have 6 of them behind me. They don't talk, they don't live, they don't do anything, but they're a part of me in some way, shape, or form. Each one has a memory, and I'm not. There's no like central point I'm getting at. It's just that I am interested in the philosophy behind things and minimalism, and talking about being the old curmudgeon up in the mountains with just the goats, and I think about that too. I don't know. I'm trying to think of like the balance between appreciating things because we
mhm,
both love books, we both love you know rosaries, and there's tangible objects we have in our lives that are
mhm,
meaningful. But I think where's the balance between enjoying things of intrinsic value? We have a crucifix on the wall. That's a thing. That's
mhm,
good, right? But then you have monks in the Carthusian monks in Korea. They have just a drawing of a cross on a piece of paper because they said
mhm,
no thing takes place of the actual representation or whatever it represents.
mhm,
So I guess I'm kind of spinning around the wheel of like it is interesting. I'm looking at a pile of board games. You know,
mhm,
what things do we need in this life? What are good to have? What's not good to have? And
mhm,
at what point do you start anchoring and keeping versus being kind of light and thrifty because I like this isn't going to be our forever home. We're going to have to move
mhm.
again, you know. I don't know. So I'm just dancing around a lot of topics of things and I don't know. What is your
Yeah.
have you come to a
I think
philosophy
like you
now?
mentioned, well, I don't know if I've got a coherent one, but like that particular point of the Carthusian, I think you said they were.
Yeah.
Um, there's a point. Okay, there's what do I want to say? Bringing up that point it's a good one and it's a very interesting one, but
Mm,
I suspect or I think it's not as helpful for, let's say, married dads who live in the world.
yeah.
Partly and largely because the moment you start dealing with religious figures, all right, clergy or religious figures or monks and nuns and convents and cloisters and stuff, you're dealing with a completely different handle on reality or a way of
Yeah.
engaging with reality. So these people
That's
are
true.
trying to be spiritual specialists.
Yep.
They're trying to see what is the thing that is being revealed behind all the things. So it is a specific discipline of, cultivating insight, cultivating awareness, cultivating presence, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Most of us aren't called to that same sort of thing at all. We don't have the gift. We don't have the charisms. It's you could maybe practice that discipline, but the other ways, what if you could have like all the things and still not lose sight of what it is these
True.
spiritual specialists are trying to cultivate?
Yep.
And I think that is the ideal for us who are in the world, but not
Yeah.
of the world. So if you've got the one mindset, which is don't be deluded or confused by the 10,000 things that make up all of of reality, and a lot of religious will go that route. Like for example, Buddhists they're very big into this concept. The 10,000 things is their sort of, if I've poorly understood it, it's their catch-all phrase for like all of reality, all the delusions of everything that make up reality. That's the 10,000 things, because all of it is it's a filter. It's stuff that's separating you, ultimately confusing or deluding you from actual reality. And I think some clergy or maybe some religious orders will have some of that mindset in how they operate. Now, I think that they might actually find a good way to go about it. But if you go sort of the other route, then you have like mega rich people, McMansions and so on. They are absolutely deluded and glutted by the 10,000 things. They've completely lost sight of why am I here? What are all these things supposed to be doing at all? Who's serving who? And so the middle space that I would say would be, well, a good steward role, a good steward, somebody who is somebody where not you are master of the 10,000 things, you are master of your relationship to the 10,000 things. And so you have this idea instead that God reveals himself through all of creation, and the first gospel was creation itself. The 10,000 things are the first presencing and embodying and incarnating and communicating of God and of everything that he is through creation. He communicates to all of creation. So the 10,000 things are not stumbling blocks. They're stepping stones. So you can have, where am I going with this? You can have spiritual specialists who want to dedicate my life to trying to like see through the mirror, to try to see through all of this thing that reflects myself back to myself. I want to see the one who's on the other side of the mirror, who holds me in being. Not to downplay the value of all these things.
Yeah.
But then there's the other side, which is probably more of us, which is like, how can I look at these things and what can I learn with these things that are also going to now not just reveal God to me? I think we can sometimes be overly pious or overly spiritual.
Yeah, that's true.
I very much think that there's this fantasy novel that I absolutely loved. It was a trilogy. The first book was called maybe I'll remember it later. Chalion. It's Chalion. Hold on, something. I got to Google this really quickly. Chalion by Lois McMaster Bujold. Curse of Chalion.
Oh, wow.
I loved this fantasy series.
Well, that's cool.
I remember reading after reading the three, I thought, I don't even know why I thought this, but it came to my mind. It stuck ever since. If St. Teresa of Avila were to ever write a fantasy trilogy, this would be it.
Oh, yeah?
Don't shoot me. I don't know why, but it felt very obvious. And I loved this trilogy. Anyhow, there's this one line in the last book where the character says, matter has memory. The gods have ideas and we humans have ideas and all of this, but matter is the thing that holds those ideas, that embodies them, that holds the form. It has a memory, a staying power. And so when we fill our environments with, I have white walls and stuff, but you've got more decorating in your environment, right?
Yeah.
Well, what are you actually doing? You're saying all of this exterior stuff, all of this is me. All of these are symbols of my inner life. I love these things and I want to associate myself with these things because they reveal me to myself. They reveal me to others. And there's if I could have like shelves and stuff, I would have all kinds of like figurines and objects and icons. And my wife hates tchotchkes and stuff like that. But I kind of love them because each one of them is like, it's like a symbol or a sigil of an individual idea inside my mental warehouse of stuff that I love. and to embody it so that my senses can engage with it and it's not just an
Mm.
idea in my mind, right? That's why we collect stuff. That's why we look at stuff. That's why stuff
Yeah.
like window shopping or traveling to other countries and we're like, out of the miasma of the 10,000 things that's full of undifferentiated stuff that I don't know has meaning for me. What if I like sort of look at like everything and then
Mm.
all of a sudden I see something and go, I love that. I don't know why I do, but that's inside me.
Yeah.
That thing is not just a thing I love because it's like out there. I'm like, wow, that's really cute or beautiful or whatever. It's like, that is a reflection of something that's inside me. And I want that routinely in my awareness. And I want that on a shelf or I want it,
Yeah.
you know, and it's hard to then let go and throw out all of this stuff
Hmm.
because it's like you're reducing, in a way, you're sort of reducing your life back to a piece of blank white paper, and
Yeah.
that can be very hard, I think, if you don't have like enough foundations in your own like your own personal life. Losing all of this stuff can be very traumatizing, I think,
Yeah. Well,
because yeah, go ahead.
I was say off of this, I'm wondering. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Is it a difference of personality or a difference of, well, I'll say, because you described me. I'm looking at my, I have, the Funko Pops of, Stranger Things and,
I
Home
didn't know you
Alone.
had those.
Oh yeah, I got. There's like, I'm looking at a whole row of them.
Oh,
I
that's
have
funny.
my first license plates for the Jeeps that I owned. I have, a painting. I have the Declaration of Independence. Like, so it's all random things that I love because it's like, yes, these I like seeing, like you said, a visual representation of who I think I am. It's, it's
Mhm.
pop culture, it's cars, it's paintings, it's history, it's so I like that. But then I know, like, a friend of mine, we're the same people essentially, same age, grew up together, best friend, is
Mhm.
not like that.
Mhm.
Doesn't have as much stuff up. Has the same capabilities to do so. I'll say, like, has a place that he can furnish, has the means to do so. Is that a difference of personality? Is it a more a kind of a
Yeah.
harsher tone of like a level of perception of self or need a perception? I'm not, and not in a negative sense, just is that a what are your thoughts? Because I'm thinking I
Yeah.
like to think it's more of a personality thing and not like
I
you
do
know,
think it is. Not
because
everybody needs, because humanity is like a spectrum,
oh yes.
Again, what we just talked about. You've got If you've got spiritual specialists on one side, I do think a lot of the not a lot maybe, but some of the defining differences between a bunch of religious orders boils down to personality characteristics,
Personality. Yep.
either of the founder or of the followers or whatever, and then
Yep.
just continuing to attract those kinds of people,
Mm-hmm.
for better or for worse. And so, because we've talked a bit about the Enneagram in the past, how each number is it's qualitatively a distinct
Yes.
experience of being human.
Mm-hmm.
And so, a religious order founded by, let's say, a number one, it's going to be very,
Very yeah.
if especially if it's a very compulsive kind of person, it's going to be very, not anemic, but scrupulous and care, and it's like perhaps whitewashed
Yeah.
walls, and everything is going to be a very cerebral and maybe Dominican or something. Um, I don't even know. But then something founded by like a seven, right? Bit more like you. There's probably going to be more of a celebration of, I don't know, maybe ritual dance or life in creation.
Yeah.
And maybe a lot more gardening and this hiking and song creating. It's going to be more creative and engaged. It's totally different kind of community. So one, I do think there's a big personality plays a big deal into this, but also I think personality is a bit of an indicator on how much of yourself you need or want to communicate or to others or to like embody in your environment.
Yeah. That's a good point.
So I think the people who are like we talked on the one side, if you've got these mimic mansions and so on, I
Yeah.
think that there is a compulsion there. There's a desire there to embody and incarnate a lot,
Mm-hmm.
to amass and gather together, because all of these things reflect or refract bits of me that I can't see. And because I've not maybe either learned the discipline or I just don't know what I'm doing, there's a bit of a
Yeah.
spiritual child in there going, I need to be able to see myself, right? There's this book from C.S. Lewis called Till We Have Faces. And the point of the whole book is, how can we come face to face with the gods if we don't have a face?
Yeah.
We haven't learned to see ourselves. And so our
Mm-hmm.
face is like this blank, undifferentiated sort of thing because we've put no attention on ourselves. And that's what we, as sort of spiritual, what do you call them? like baby gods, right? I love praying the Liturgy of the Hours, how routinely they will say, God, you are the greatest among all the gods, you know. And we would say the angels, those are all the gods.
Yeah.
But we're like these little baby godlets, we're these, you know,
Yeah.
in gods in training kind of thing. And because we don't put any attention on ourselves, you sort of stay as this kind of corn cob, you know, doll with
Yeah.
little to no definition. But you've got, because we're in this process of theosis that's going on, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
this growing into the divine life of God that's always
Yeah.
happening, and so it's like you're sitting on the tip of a train, and that train is not stopping. And as much as you would want it to, that life is never going to like stop and let you get
Yeah.
off, because it's got one direction, and you can make your life easier or harder depending on how you choose to engage with this dynamic that's going on inside you. So what I'm saying is, I think somebody who has no idea what's going on in their inner life,
Mm-hmm.
gathering all of this stuff because you're trying to maybe see yourself, you're trying to
Yeah.
identify. And these super rich people, what do? You walk through their homes, these mansions are museums, they're art galleries. Like these
Mm-hmm.
things are, especially once you get past kind of the sort of crass, level of just having
Yeah.
money.
Just
Once you get
having
into a
things.
bit more old
Yes.
money and like trying to be more
Yep.
intentional with their wealth, like these things can be weird or
Well,
fascinating
yeah.
galleries.
Well, do you know what it is? I like the idea of like kind of like marking your history. And I like the idea of being a new creation. Obviously when we come into, a relationship with God, you have a new creation, your new self. I do like those. However, I do also like these markings of where you've come from. I think that's why I like, accoutrements in the back they all mean something, and
Mhm.
tattoos because they mark different defining moments in your life, and having things as reminders of where you've come from, who where your family's come from, different things that you are intrigued in. So I
Mhm.
like that idea of having things that showcase different elements of your life. There's a part, that's why I like, the biggest thing is tattoos. Like each one I get,
Mhm.
the rule of thumb for me is that I have to sit on it for a year. If I have an idea, I have to sit on it for a year
Mhm.
because I like my idea is that it's the story, the lover of stories in me, that I would even like it if my grandkids, if to see my tattoos, they can get a sense of who I am from the
Mhm.
story I tell. Same thing
Mhm.
with the things I own. If you came down into my office, I always liked the idea that you could sit in here, look around the room, and even get almost a perfect sense of who I am, or at least a
Mhm.
gist of like where I'm coming from, seeing everything. Because like you said, the Funko Pops is a good thing. Like you have Funko Pops, it's like, yeah, like that's a little characteristic trait that I do like to share and see that out of all this like
Yeah.
kind of like rich wood and old books but I do like, Kevin McAllister on the shelf, holding a little
Mhm.
iron. Like I like that. And I
I
think,
have to see these Funko Pops
oh,
sometime.
I
So
should bring him over. Yeah.
this is probably the only thing that I've got now. My wife got this for me for my
Jesus. Yeah.
birthday or Christmas, I forget now. But like I've been wanting something like this for
Should have
ages.
it.
Every time we go to the store, I will go and look at the store, like Target or Walmart or
Yep.
something like that. I will go and have a look, like trying to see, can I find like the perfect Batman toy or
Uh-huh.
something.
That's a pretty
Apart
good
from my
one.
laptop, that's the only thing that I've got that sort of to decorate with. And maybe there's a conversation. It's like, why do you need that, bro? It's like, well, we can get into that one day. Um,
Why do you
that's
need?
fun. I want to see those Funko Pops sometime.
Yeah. That's a good
Let's talk
question.
about
Why do you need that?
or why do you want that? That's such
Uh-huh.
and that's why you know meeting each other and seeing each other in each other's environments. It does prompt. It's meant to prompt these questions. That's why we like to have these things, is because we're in dialogue, we're in conversation with ourselves.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it can be very hard to let it
I
all
feel
go. You can also get glutted or like burdened down. And this is part of the other thing we're talking about. Um, maybe I don't know where this thought goes, but if you accrue too much without enough intentionality, you can do perhaps in your environment what you do in your own self when you're not trying to pay attention to your own sense of self.
yeah.
And so then your identity becomes this weird, bloated, broken, trauma riddled,
Yeah.
with, you're dealing with parasites, spiritual parasites, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. If you don't, I was just reading over the weekend, Valentin Tomberg had this one little quote where he's like, the more, it's not navel gazing, but it's the more intentional sort of Christ-centered attention that you put on yourself, it is the thing that forces these negative things to detach from you because they can't grab onto you. I had a dream like, I don't know, it was a year and a half ago, and this image just leapt to my mind, which haven't been able to quite shake, which is so interesting, which is if you're to imagine, I imagined I was like in this massive black sort of, I don't know, like floating in space. And I was the surface of a sphere. But wherever I was like, not, how do I say, wherever I was like angry or bad or like whatever was not like pure and like open and trying to like be good, would create this rough patch on this surface of this beautifully smooth sphere. And wherever the rough patches was, that's where like a lamprey or would like grab on. I don't know if you've ever seen these. They like stick on to the undersides
Yeah.
of sharks and
Yep.
stuff, or
Yep.
they grab on like mollusks to boats or whatever. And so these parasitical evil things, that's what they would grab on wherever I was not like smooth and like transparent and open to things. And then in the dream, it was if I would let that thing go, and then the surface of that thing would just like become smooth, and then the thing had nothing to grab onto, and it would just fly off and disappear.
Okay.
And it's just struck me as such an interesting metaphor.
Yeah.
For
Yeah. What do you take from that?
yeah, like attachments or wounds or, and again, not just any attachment. It's like inordinate amount of attachment, like where you're not just stewarding things, you're trying to be the master of those things. You're trying, instead of stewarding your sense of self and your sense of identity, because we change. Like I am not the same person I was 10 years ago.
For sure.
Can you imagine what life would be like if you're trying to be every year exactly the same person? You end up with 50-year-old children who still don't know how to relate to other people. And invariably a form of narcissism, really horrible narcissism, because you're paying attention to yourself in all the wrong ways.
Yeah.
But if you're, I don't know, I'm still thinking around this idea. If you're not, it's not like transparent before God, but if you are learning to let go of these things that affect us negatively, that are negative, that we generate, that are harmful. And a lot of these things happen because we're not paying any attention to them. You and I maybe sort of have been chatting over the last year, and it's just become more obvious to me how sometimes I can't tell or see what's going on in me or what I need to fix or do.
Yeah.
And that's why we need friends. It could be a confessor, it could be a mentor, it could be an actual friend, but it's the loving attention of another person, sort of helping me to turn my attention to myself, helping you to turn your attention to yourself.
Yeah.
That can be so invaluable to like finding out where the weak spots are, finding out where the wounds are. We've got this idea sometimes, I think, that, I've got these wounds, I've got these problems, I need to get a pickaxe and just get down in there and hack away and stuff. And sometimes you're there are marshes in your inner life, and there's like these wounds fester, and sometimes you can't turn the light of your attention onto it to fix it at your time frame. You just have to actually let it kind of go to seed and grow over in its own time.
Yeah.
And it's not by ignoring it, it's by accepting that it's there, and then it's not putting a wall around it, but putting yourself outside of situations that are going to keep ripping that thing open.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can mean gray rocking or distancing yourself from people or situations. And here's you get into a whole conversation about therapy.
But
sometimes it takes this loving attention of a friend. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I'm saying, and it was nice. I was reading, this is a book I just got today. It's Spiritual Direction from Padre Pio every day. And today, just talking about this idea of accepting these trials and these different things we go through, and a friend to help you recognize. It's like, from when me and you talk, it's just that person say, Gabe, just recognize what you're going through. It's okay. It stinks, but it's going to be something. And it's not that like this, and it's hard. I go back and forth with this. Everything happens for a reason versus, God can use everything. It's kind of the same, but it's a little different. There's a little bit of nuance there. And I think Padre Pio, in a letter he wrote in 1916, he was just saying that all the trials you are going through are clear signs of divine delight and jewels to beautify your soul. Everything that is happening to you is the work of Jesus. And it goes on to further, and keeps going. In brief, do good insofar as it is good in itself, and insofar as it gives glory and pleasure to God. And And what I took from that is just, thinking about all the different things I've gone through and the things that, we've discussed in different ways. And sometimes you're left like, why was that even purposeful? Like I just went through that. It was just utter discomfort. And we were just talking about, I'm just starting to see things that happened in 2018. They were terrible, very frustrating, lost a job, this and that. And just now kind of seeing benefits from it, how I grew. And I don't, it's one of those conversations like, could I have grown to the same point in any other way? I don't know. That's not how it went. And so I'm trying to look now, in anything going forward, let's say I go through a bout of, a worry or doubt or anything, because it's tough to see the mental side of things and see benefit from it, at least for me. If it's an exterior thing, so like when I lost a job, it was an exterior thing that happened, and it's a trial. And I consider that like, the trials of life. And you're like, okay, you know what happened? I opened up and I got a better job. So there you go. Like that blossomed into something different. I have a tough time sometimes when the trials are interior.
Yeah.
Because you're like, are these actual trials, or am I just causing a mess for myself for no reason? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's just I've definitely had it. But reading Padre Pio's words, even the battle of an interior trial, that's still a battle. That's still a trial. It's still something that's happening. We can still look at it as the work of God. And I like this idea of going through life almost with a curiosity and seeing like, like I'm thinking this way or I'm feeling this way. Why is that? What's happening right now? Or if you don't know, okay, I don't understand right now, but down the line, maybe this will become clear. Or if it doesn't become clear, may it make me who the person God wants me to be.
Yeah.
I don't know. So this, I do recommend, if we could, I'll give you the title of it because it's been really great just these past, few days. Such good words of wisdom. But yeah, I like this idea of, that's why it's so key. There's times in my life when I haven't had a friend to bounce things off of. You just rattle in your mind and you don't get to see the fruits as clearly than when we talk. Or, you talk with, even a spouse. But sometimes it's nice to have, you have your spousal discussions, which are deep and intimate. But then you have friendly conversations, friendship, brothership conversations that they reflect differently. Because you have an outside person feeling like, yeah, you've challenged me sometimes. I don't know about that. And it's like, what do you mean you don't know about that? I'm thinking it, so it must be true. But yeah.
There was along those lines, just the other night I had a dream. It was a bit of a nightmare, and everything was kind of going wrong. And it was my wife and I were going on a date, and she was looking beautiful, and it was going to be very nice. And we're about to walk into the mall to go to, I don't know why we're walking into the mall to go have dinner. And I look down, and I'm holding a big jug of water in my hand. I'm like, oh, that's supposed to stay in the car. Why am I even carrying this? Like, hold on, honey, just wait right here. I'll be right back. And I ran back to go put it in the car. When I got to where I had apparently parked the car in a part of a dream I don't remember, it was now at the bottom of a hill as steep as the Andes. And there's other cars parked all around it, and people were having a big fiesta, and they were sitting on top of my vehicle, and the back of my car was now filled with everything that I was moving for some reason. And I got down to this thing, and I was shooing the people off the car, and I'm putting this water in the back, and I'm trying to drive up this hill that gets steeper and steeper, and I don't want to spill the water all over everything in the back of the car. And then I get to the top and realize there's nowhere to park up here. I've got to drive back down, but now there's babies and kids playing right below the car, and if I'm not careful, this thing's going to roll down the hill.
Wow.
And so I'm like beeping the horn, get the kids out of the way, and I got to drive back down this hill, and now the light's going, and I don't have any shoes. And I'm trying to find like a knife edge on which to park this car. Anyhow, by the time I finally woke up and I realized this is something that routinely happens to me, where I'm not lucid in my dreams, but I am there's a pre-lucidity happening.
A lot of clarity, yeah.
My fears of the things that I don't want to happen immediately happen.
That's interesting.
And it's like I remember once walking in a dream we were in a previous house, and I walked up towards the street, and I thought, "Whew, I'm really glad there are no trolls." And then all of a sudden, I don't know why I thought that. Shut up. A troll sort of apparated or just like formed out of the trees across the road and started walking down, and then ripped into the next house, pulling out the people like candy. And of course, now this becomes a nightmare. We're trying to hide, and it's like, man, I hope he does not turn around to our house. He turned around and starts walking towards our house. Of course, right. So where am I going with this? I woke up and I was just thinking about that because I try to journal my dreams in the morning.
Yeah.
Just realizing in this specific state of my consciousness, whatever, the things that I'm afraid of are I start creating this in my awareness. I start
Mm.
creating these things. The things that I'm afraid of, I start like manifesting them. I start only seeing that now these things are happening. And it just got me thinking, well, how much of that am I doing in my actual waking life? The things that I'm afraid of,
Yeah.
am I spinning up the facts to confirm my fear bias or something? And then I'm making decisions based off of that may or may not be actually true.
Yeah.
But who's driving my ego or my fear of whatever?
Yeah.
And I don't know yet exactly where this line of thought goes, but it just, maybe this sort of leads into the part of the conversation we want to talk about, being, serial starters. But I forgot what were you, I just slipped my mind because I got so buried in my own thought. What were you just talking about? Because I think I was trying to sort of riff on that or follow off
It
of
was
that.
the idea of that, like, trials in our life, mean something, and there's,
Oh yeah. Okay, so here's where I was trying to go with that. How much when you're like a kid and you're refusing to like basically grow up,
Yeah.
life is going to keep getting harder and harder and harder and harder. Not because it's trying to punish you, but because you keep armoring up harder and harder to withstand reality.
Yep.
And at some point, there are only like two options. You're either going to leave here like a lobster, a spiritual lobster, perfectly armored up from anything being able to like get into you, or something awful kind of has to happen because you're trying to get through life like you're a knight and you're completely shielded from anything being able to get into you. If that is your spiritual state, then it's going to be sadder and harder for life to be able to get into you because you're not a fully functioning adult. You're not a fully functioning human being. If that is how you're trying to get through things.
Yes.
I
Go
want
ahead.
to ask you what you think. Let me just wrap up my thoughts, because actually this morning I was Liturgy of the Hours. I was singing along with it. It's a YouTube channel I like to follow because I don't have the discipline to just read a book on that.
No, yeah.
But there was that line, the Lord loves those whom he admonishes, or the Lord admonishes those whom he loves.
Yeah.
And that, oh my gosh, do we love to tweet that around? Like, you got a hard life? Shows that God loves you. And I'm like, you know what? I don't like the way that is interpreted. I don't think that that's appropriate.
Yeah.
It's, I don't think that is a healthy thing to be communicating to somebody who's got a hard life. Oh, God loves you. What is that? Because what does that communicate? That means I don't have to engage or help you in your life because you suck, because and stuff's hard because God is trying to get through to you and stuff. There might be a point at which this is true. What is also true is that sometimes you can be in a Job-like situation where you did nothing to earn any of the things being thrown at you.
Yeah.
And we are a human family. And so when one member suffers, the other members are supposed to come together to help carry that cross together. So this sort of rugged individualism in our spirituality is an awful cancer that it kills any sort of community living. It divides and it separates, and it's an awful sort of thing. But once you sort of get more deeply into it, that's when you start to understand why the saints would be like, oh, when my attitude towards everything changes and I can start to see that God is in everything and he is able to communicate to me through everything, then I don't mind as much what is going on because I'm not trying to be a lobster. Yeah. I'm not saying the alternate is necessarily to be a jellyfish, in that you are completely like, you have no backbone effectively.
Yep.
What is the ideal? I'm going to say is actually to be a human being. You're soft and you're sensitive and you're adaptable to any environment that you go into with enough time. But you've got a backbone in the sense that you have a core sense of identity. But you can express and communicate and articulate yourself, and things can impress into you.
Yeah.
And you're not a lobster. You're not like an elephant with like this massive hard hide that nothing can sort of get in. You're able to be sensitive and responsive to your environment without losing your sense of self.
Exactly.
That seems to me like that's the spiritual reason why we have the bodies that we do,
Mm-hmm.
not just because they evolved this way. They evolved this way because they're trying to meet up with this spiritual reality that
Yeah.
we are embodying.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole bunch. What are you thinking?
Well, yeah, that's I was when you were talking, it immediately made me think of an analogy of, like a dock at sea. So there's two different types of docks. You have like the anchored dock, which is, fixed piers, columns, and it's anchored to the sea floor, but and it's just good. But at times when the waves are high, it crashes over, and it's a lot of stress on that
Mhm.
dock, and they could break because of the stress.
And those kinds of docks can't go out that far.
No,
Not as
exactly.
far as the other ones, I think, where you're going.
Which one that float on top and then ride the
Yeah.
waves, and they kind of go
Mhm.
with it. So that's exactly what I was getting at. That you can only go so far, being
Mm.
like, this is the way I am. I'm not changing. Like even like if you're,
I like that. What a great metaphor.
so I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
thinking about that as a father. Like like you going through, you have your first child, or even your fifth or whatever. You, I want to, I was just about this with our child. She's 6 months old, our youngest, and you have this. We just went for a time with not having an infant in the house, and you have certain bedtime you do and routine, and yeah, I could dig my heels into the ground and be like, no, like I want to do things I want to do the way I want to, but like that's gonna get you nowhere, especially anybody who's had a kid at any age. You do have to adjust with the time. Like, we're in a time of life where we have 5 kids all under the age of 8. I'm not going to be doing certain things that I would be doing had I had no kids or kids that are older. And even outside of kids, like my current, your job atmosphere, I don't know, anything's in life. I'm trying more and more and learning more and more to kind of build with the way life is now versus trying to force it into the shape and mold that I want it to be. And I was
Mhm.
even thinking like, with newborns, this is on the top of my mind,
Mhm.
sleeping, we're trying to train her to sleep and get into a good rhythm, and you have to let her cry it out in different times. And kind of like, in the back of your mind, she didn't sleep good 2 nights. And I was like, the third night, you're like, oh, like, I just want it to be a certain thing. Like, I want her to fall asleep. I want her to not wake up. But I instead went to bed last night with a sense of curiosity. I said, let's just see how the night plays out. Let's just
Mhm.
let it unfold. Because how it's going to unfold is how it's going to unfold. And it doesn't help me digging my heels into the ground, you know, I was gonna say we're moaning about what I want it to be.
Mhm.
Um and so in life, I'm trying to do that too, like build on the things in life. So right now, what can I do? Well, I can ride the wave. And then for writing, well, I can't spend 5 hours a day writing, but I can take a 30 minutes in the morning. I can take an hour at night. And it's funny, like when I was staying on the side of like what I want to do, I got no writing done. Because I was like, I don't have 2 hours of just solid time to write. But I made great progress on my book when I just said, you know what, I'm going to take 20 minutes now and 30 minutes later. And then you start scooping up these little extra bits of time.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think that's the lesson that I'm gladly starting to understand more and more of, like building the floating dock. You can go so much farther. You could ride the waves so much better. There's still waves, there's still bumps, but at least you could stay
Mhm.
afloat.
Yeah, but the dock isn't like a raft that's unmoored and that's just floating out,
Yeah, you're not lost.
allowing
Yeah,
anything to happen to you.
exactly.
Yeah, that I like that. I like that sense. Like I pray that this is not me, and this is why I like trying to be vulnerable with friends and sharing these kinds of conversations. But
Yeah,
because I can see them a little bit from the outside, and so I don't know what sort of attention I'm putting on myself. But there are narcissists in my life who are like real narcissists that I've known of,
yeah,
and I look at them and I go, "You've you've built up such plate armor around who you are as a person and how you interact with other people or reality. You're such a narcissist that it's going to be traumatizing for God to get through to you
mm,
because nobody you love in your life can speak truth to you or say something in any way that's going to get in because everything
yeah,
gets twisted around you. You get these people who get conspiracy minded theorists and stuff who go down rabbit holes. No matter what you say, they have put in like filters in their cognition where everything gets twisted into how they want to
yeah,
understand it. There's at a point where there's no ability to actually communicate with that person. And I look at those, and first of all, I'm like, well, I don't know that I'm supposed to be in your life. I
yeah,
don't know that
yeah.
because you don't want me to be that kind
No,
of role or person. So it's not appropriate for me to keep trying to grandstand and tell you how you can do better or whatever because you don't want to hear it from me. So sometimes that's the case with family, even where
mhm,
yes, we grow up together, but there's that funny line where people say, what is it? Blood is thicker than water. And it's funny how the original version of that phrase is the absolute opposite
Mm.
of what that phrase
Oh,
means,
really?
because the actual phrase is the water, what is it? The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb,
That's interesting.
which is hilarious because we
Yeah.
take it to mean the actual blooded veins of our family are
Mm-hmm.
more than just the water of. I actually don't even
Yeah.
know
What
how
was?
they turned
Yeah.
it around. The whatever water Kool-Aid you're drinking between the
Yeah.
rest of your community. It's like, no, the the blood of the covenant, which means the bonds of the intentional bonds of
Yeah.
friendship and
Relationship.
community
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you enter into, that is stronger than the water. It's not even mere, but just the water of the womb that brought you into the world,
Mm.
because it's a matter of intentionality.
Yeah.
So just because you're born into a family, we've got this sort of awful idea that like family is everything. And it's like, well, there's a point at which that
Yeah.
sours and becomes a toxic problem.
Yeah.
And I think it's important. Now, partly because it's part of my story, so it's a
Sure.
big deal for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yep.
being able to maintain
course.
that freedom to like walk away, especially, I think we can get a big ego and thinking like, well, they're my family. They're gifted to me. Yes, that's true. And I'm supposed to help them get to heaven. It's like, no, I sort of see where you're going. So I have
Yeah.
to witness and show up, and I have to be the one bringing up things at family dinners, and I have to like keep
Yeah.
being the tack in the seat, so that they're
Mm-hmm.
never too comfortable with life. And I've
Yeah.
got to keep bringing the gospel to them. It's like, well, it sounds like you're trying to prove something to somebody because
Yeah.
they don't want that from you. And
No.
maybe you're not supposed to be that person.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
think
that's a
that's
whole.
to a certain point. Yeah, you live your life like we're all called if we're, if we do follow Christ, we're called to live that life, but live it as an example, not as a, that's what I always thought about that in my personal life. I never liked the, screaming from the corner of a street. Like, who does that like? Who's like, oh, that guy sounds like I want to talk to him, but versus the guy who serves and is humble and is kind and loving. Like, I would much rather say like, what's going on in your life? Like, what is going
Mhm.
on? Like. So I've personally taken that as my role and responsibility in family and friends. Like, especially when I went through, public high school, there was times where, I was a Christian, which was, so I had defining factors that separated me from my peers. And I just never felt called to say anything, like to call people out or like, I'll say evangelize in that way. I feel like, I'm going to do what I do. I didn't swear much. I didn't really, in front of my peers, I didn't swear at all. Privately, but in front of my peers, I didn't swear, so I had a different language. I didn't drink while everyone else was drinking. It just wasn't. It didn't appeal to me. So I was fortunate in that. But so certain things. But then when somebody asked me why, I didn't like make it a point to stand in the pulpit and condemn. I explained what I believed and left it at
Mhm.
that. And I don't know. I don't know. I know there's a role for us to evangelize in a certain way, but I heavily side on the side of being more of an exemplar of faith
Mhm.
than to I don't know. I just don't see I've never seen it firsthand a
Mhm.
condemnation approach that worked.
No,
I haven't
I
seen
don't.
it.
I
you know?
don't know that.
And
I'm
looking
not
at Christ's
convinced. Yeah.
examples, he has never, what does he do exactly? The woman at the well, like, or the woman who's caught in adultery, like, what did he do? We have the examples right there, and yet,
Mhm.
for some reason, at least American Christianity, I don't know if it's it's probably worldwide, but it's that certain Christianity vein of condemnation to whip people into shape.
Mhm.
I've never had that.
It's the wrong level of attention. Like you look
Yeah,
at it seems obvious to me, I think. You look at his public ministry to the general people, not to the apostles. The apostles were a mystery
exactly.
school. The
Yes, yeah,
apostles were spiritual specialists.
yep,
They got a totally different
different.
level of, but look at how he treats everybody else. It's
Yeah,
it's just yeah, the it's the easy way out to put evangelization, let's say, before your witness. Before having kind of maybe
yep,
not, I don't want to say mastered your witness, but before having built up a life that actually, you know, doesn't have any rough spots on it where parasites can clamp onto. Like
mm-hmm.
building up a life where this is partly where you're trying to ride a knife edge because you don't want to build up a life purely for the opinions and the seeing of other people,
Yeah,
because then you slide into scrupulosity and Pharisaism. But
exactly. Yeah,
building
yeah,
up a life where like you're really trying to really be the the actual you, the true version of you that's not just trying to co-opt or live purely for the sake of other people. And that's where we're talking about, yes, you need to be a sensitive thing. You don't want to be a jellyfish,
No.
so responsive to your environment that you have no sense of self.
No,
That's not
exactly.
helpful. And there are some people who are like that, and that's how they've managed to cope. That's how they've managed to survive. I'm not going to condemn that. But if you do want to be a free, independent kind of adult, then you have to find your own backbone. But then in finding your own backbone, you don't want to have so much bone everywhere.
Yeah, you don't flex at all.
That you can't flex at all because you need to be adaptable. So it's like, woohoo! It's like you can't tell this to a child, right?
No.
Anyway, that's a whole conversation. Do we want to get into a little bit about serial starter stuff in the last sort of 5, maybe 10 minutes here? What's going through your mind? What were you rattling around last week?
It started with the sense of that it's something I want to change, but then
because we don't want to be a serial starter with this topic.
No,
it's like, we'll do it next week.
We'll tease it every week.
Put 5 minutes on it this week anyway.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because I posed it as kind of like something I want to work on, but you posed a good question, like why is that a bad thing? And so I think where the groundwork, or what I see it as on the table, is I have a lot of things that I start, but I don't finish. So like this ship being an example in the top corner. And I pose as like, I do want to slow my startup mentality a little bit so I can see things to completion because I think there is benefit in that. However, I am not opposed to so this book I was reading a book, Air by Saba Tahir. Good book, but I wasn't enjoying it the way I wanted to. So I'm putting it on pause, moving on, and I'm moving on to a series that I really want to enjoy. I think that's fine because I will enjoy that at a different time. My mind's more in that zone of this whodunit mystery. So let's carry that way. Let's go on with that wind and finish that. I'm okay with that. What I do want to change though is starting up these little projects that I think will be beneficial to see them through and to let them be done in a source of accomplishment. But I don't. Yeah. So I want to find the balance because I like doing many different things. I think that's just my personality. I'm not one to just be. I do this thing, and that's the only thing I do every day. I just like me. I can't fish every day for the rest of my life. I have to do something different. I have to fish one day, the other day I go, bird watching. Another day I go, bowling. So that's fine with me. But I want to find that balance where I do start things, but I do finish things because there is something to finishing. So I don't know where are your thoughts at serial starting and where's the balance? Is it good? Yada yada yada.
Well, first of all, how are you making sense of it? So some of the things that seems you're saying you're trying to find what is the morally good thing to do? Is it irresponsible?
which is always my thing.
Yeah. I think a lot. We all do that. How do you go to sleep at night?
Yeah, very roughly. No, I do kind of I take the weight off of it. So this, a ship being built it's not the end of the world. I don't care in the sense that if I never finish it and my obituary says Gabe didn't finish a ship. It doesn't matter. But I know I have and I won't say issue. That's kind of a tough word, but I have a struggle with focus and attention on things. Mm-hmm. So I like shorter projects like a pipe or something because it took a short amount of time. I could finish it and see it all the way through. That, it's hard to get that done quickly. I don't know. I think where I rested on it is that I'm trying to see the projects that fit my personality. Mm-hmm. I'm not one to do a large, 12 by 12 mural painting. That's just too much. And one I can't paint that much, but right. So the scope of my work, I want to fit the time of my life and my personality. That's where I've kind of that curiosity side is directing me towards is not oh, you're a failure because you're not finishing these projects. What do I learn from not doing those? Okay, well, mm-hmm. I think time is always of the essence for me. And personality wise, what can I do in the time of windows that my focus allows? Mm-hmm. So I think that's even cross stitching. It's just something that I kind of put on the shelf. And when I want to do it, I pick it up. But being okay that if it takes me 3 years, it's just I'm doing for enjoyment. I'm not doing it for, but then it goes into the zone of writing. Mm-hmm. And I do the same thing. I get very interested. I'll write. And then I'm okay, I'm done. And I'm very disinterested and I move on. But I want to finish it through because mm-hmm. this book I'm writing now, I want to see it through. I want to see it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's what, I don't know. There's not solid conclusions. It's mostly just curiosity of self. Mm-hmm. But I do want to have some a little level more of discipline to finish things, but I don't know, like, you know, a ship or a cross stitch. It's kind of they're not as meaningful to finish that I don't have to put such weight on them.
I think that's the key. It's recognizing you could be the kind of person who does finish everything, whatever
Yeah.
that means. Would you actually be a smarter or a better person for doing that? There are some people who have, I think, very specific. They have charisms. They have a gift of
Yes.
actually getting through to the end of something.
Yep.
There are some people who will kill themselves and they will finish everything that they start. And then you actually look at their lives and you wonder, are you
Yeah.
actually, you should
Misery.
have dumped that ages
Yeah.
ago, bro, you know?
Yep.
There's like the whole, what is it, fallacy of sunk costs, right? I grapple with this a lot,
Mhm.
which is the sense that it's the idea that I've put so much time into this thing already, I
Yes.
have to now see it through.
Yep.
And that's a fallacious argument. It's like if something's a bad idea or if it's time to pivot,
Drop
you
it.
know,
Yeah.
drop it, let it go. And so this specific thing is something I've struggled with for years because I think my dad always had a very hard time with this sort of thing. And so I've got internalized my mom's thing, like, don't be like your dad, you know, your father. He starts and never finishes
Yeah.
anything.
Uh-huh.
And I really took that to heart as a kid. And so I would like work really hard to finish stuff or feel really bad when I
Yes.
didn't,
Yeah,
and
the
I didn't
punishment side,
care
yeah.
enough to finish, and then basically not tell anybody about all the stuff that I was starting. And so
Yeah.
then my mind is like this graveyard of like construction zones
Mhm.
and stuff. And it's like, don't let anybody in because it's chaos in here. I don't even know what I'm doing in here. But
Yeah.
now as I'm a bit older, I'm looking back and thinking, okay, I would want to handle this completely differently. Looking back as a child and recognizing, I think a couple of different things to be aware of. One, personality types. This is a massive thing. We've talked about this in this conversation. I think it's like, it is key to trying to be a helpful grown-up in this world,
Yeah.
fathering other people, mentoring or just being helpful or friending to, you know, being a good
Yep.
friend to other people. Recognizing each personality wants something a bit different out of life, contributes something a bit different to
Yeah.
life, and experiences it differently too. So first, recognizing that there are some kids who are very creative, especially as kids. So they're going to start a ton of stuff
Mm-hmm.
and they're probably not going to finish it. And I am not convinced that it is a
Yeah.
mark of failure, weak mind, poor
Yep.
discipline that they don't actually finish stuff. Because you look around at everybody else at life, how many people never start anything ever?
Yeah. True.
They will have little
Other side.
sparks of interest
But never
and
give
like,
it.
oh, this would be cool if, but it
Mhm.
never gets down below their neck.
Yep.
Stays in their head, their minds, these
It-
dreams or whatever. They never embody anything, never incarnate anything, never do.
Never do
anything.
anything. Yeah. You know,
Right.
I think I'm curious as to like this seems to be, and I was thinking about this for myself, and let me know what you think. It's that we kind of chase this. I'm trying to help with the words. Chase this perception of self, or to where we like people to perceive us, because we're chasing after something as a child we got praise for. And what I mean by that is, so like, example of my life, I remember early on, at one point, for some reason, I was given praise and acknowledgement for being neat and orderly. And I just made that like my MO, like I am the neat and orderly person. That's like Gabe's thing, because it's like, it made me stand out in a way
Mhm.
and maybe like praised. I mean, not come to realize, I've known it for all along. I am actually not that neat and orderly. It's just, I mean, in certain areas, yes, like I like books and, you know, but like I'm looking at my office now, it's not very neat or orderly. My house is not very, you know, we have kids, but it's one thing I've very battled a long time. It's like this perception of what I want people to perceive of myself versus understand who I am.
Mhm.
And it's like, cause like I know, you know, neat and orderly gets praised, messy does not.
Mhm.
And you think of like, you know, Gabe does this. Well, I want that to be perceived like, because when you finish things, people praise you. When people start things, people don't really praise that. So it's like that's the defining factor as well. And I don't know. I'm curious, like in your own life too, are there things you're recognizing like that? How do you kind of? Is it a knowing where your sense of worth and value is, or you know, what? I don't know. With that idea tossed out there, does that resonate
Mhm.
with you in any way? Have you come across that?
Well, yeah, it's a great point. Again, I think this kind of comes back to the sense that there are some people who, especially if you are creative, um, you're meant to, it's important to build up the capacity, build up the muscle, build up that ability to be able to start stuff, to
Yeah.
do it quickly, to get into the process of doing, because most people never do that. Most other people will never, this is the case for most of people, they will never want to start stuff. They will never do it. It's not their charisma. They have other
Yeah.
gifts. Maybe there are a lot of people who are, they're the ones you give them a task and they will see it through all the way to the end, and that is their genius, and they are phenomenal, which is
Yeah.
why you want to partner up like serial starters
Yep.
with serial finishers.
Yeah.
Who
True.
and the serial finishers do not want to have more ideas, whereas the serial starters, it is important that they are the kind of people who do. Now, can this go wrong? Yes, like anything can. This is why you need, there's like two wings. You need to, a culture has to be able to balance this. But I think it's likely there are a lot of parents who are not just serial starters. Even making that phrase, I have a little bit of a concern with, because I'm not sure it's a good,
Yeah.
description of what we're talking about. Maybe we just say creative people. I saw a thread. It was actually created by a Japanese guy who was saying the differences between our cultures and why American entrepreneurs are usually so much more successful than Japanese ones. Because he says in Japanese education, Japanese culture, you must get everything right and you must succeed and excel, and you have to ace every single exam. There is no room for failure. Now, that also means that when a Japanese company wins, they win like anything, and they stay winning. Now, I don't know or have any data to prove that, but this is the sense that I get. As opposed to American entrepreneurs who are like, there's like 15 every Tuesday, right? Starting new things,
Yeah.
doing new things. And he's like, in the American sort of system, okay, you do have this sort of same sense of like get good grades and whatever,
Sure.
but it is normalized in more the American system to fail forward and
Yeah.
keep failing. Because you learn so much more by not being perfect, and by, instead of ideating and building
Yeah.
perfect plans, you actually get into the experience of doing the thing. And what do you learn? You learn whether the market wants it, whether you even want it, whether it's a good idea, or whether you need to change the sort of the plan. So this thing about being like a serial starter or creator, you said something which I thought was an invaluable metric of, as I get into doing the thing, I also have to sort of wait and decide, based on the amount of time I have and where I am in my life and what I want out of life,
Yep.
does this actually contribute to it? And if I decide, well, no, it sort of gives me this little itch to scratch, or it contributes this
Yeah.
one little thing,
Yep.
I might dip into it occasionally. Sometimes we have to learn when to pivot, when to change, when to drop an idea. And so to somebody else, it might look like, my gosh, your life is a
Yeah.
graveyard of
Yeah.
inactive projects. And I don't think like that. I don't
No.
feel like that. I would instead turn around and go, no. I have learned 10,000 ways not to
Exactly.
do
Yeah.
something.
Yep.
And every one of those confirmed for me, I am that adaptable thing that knows how to start, knows when to stop, because that is a vital skill to learn.
Yeah.
If you're chronically never finishing anything, and then this is now also bleeding over into your relationships, your personal life, your ability to raise a family, to build a home, to have a life. If in that sphere of things as well, you're unable to like commit and follow through, then there's an indication of like, I'm not just a serial starter with like projects.
Yeah.
There's something in me that's afraid of committing and following through. That's a slightly different situation. At that point, I think it's important to say, you need to find one thing in your life, commit to, follow it through,
Yep.
see it through to the end. So when it comes to like hobbies, I think hobbies and entrepreneurship and so on, I think it's a valuable skill to know when to quit or when to stop or when to walk
Yeah.
away. And it can be a point of pride to have a ton of startup
Yep.
things. If you're staying in a cycle of like starting and finishing it, and each of these are genuinely good ideas, but you didn't actually learn.
Mhm.
I learned from that experience. Okay, then there's the problem. It's not the
Yeah.
serial starting. It's once again you engaging with this thing. I'm reading this book, and we'll start to wrap here. I'm reading this book right now called 10x is easier than 2x. It's very, very good. And there's this one sentence that leapt out at me from somebody the guy was quoting, which is, putting in your 10,000 hours doesn't guarantee that you actually learned anything. Because there are people who have put 10,000 hours stripping coolant out of fridges in landfills. And after that, what have they learned? Like they can strip coolant, like
Yeah.
anything else. So
Yeah.
it's 10,000 iterations is what gets
Yeah.
you to the point of mastery. Playing a
Mm.
violin badly for 10,000 hours does not
Yeah.
make you lead violin.
Yeah.
But 10,000 iterations, meaning
Yeah.
I learned this, like I went through a cycle of
Mhm.
attention and now I leveled up and I
Yep.
leveled up and I did something different and I did it badly and I leveled up and I learned, right? That is the key. And that means there's going to be a million false starts
Mhm.
to sort of help you be able to find the good one.
Yeah.
So for those who are in our lives who are like, oh my God, why can't you finish anything? And I'm like, well, maybe I didn't make it for you.
Yeah.
It's okay for me to
Yeah.
figure stuff out.
Yep.
I decided after I started that the experience of doing it, I didn't need to see it through.
Yep.
Who said I have to write every single novel all the way through? Maybe
Yeah.
in the big scheme of things,
True.
all I actually needed to do was 6 chapters.
And then, yep.
That itch was scratched. I got what I needed from that thing. I was
True.
nutrified, or I got the nutrition I needed from that thing. And I'm now onto something else. I don't have to justify everything I want to do
Yeah.
really to anybody else, especially when it comes to like hobbies, you know.
Yeah, that's big.
So there's a thought to chew through. All right, we got to wrap. Friends, another episode done. Another excuse to delay real work successfully executed. So that's it for today. Any questions or thoughts from watching this, drop them in the comments. It's always fun to hear from you. I want to give a shout out to Gabby Battel, who dropped some fun comments on the last episode. I'm glad that we're being helpful. I think it's just kind of chaotic. So anyhow, enough nonsense for one day. See you next time. Same questionable decisions, same place.
See ya.